Just getting started. Hello, everybody. Today is June 9th, 2021, just so we have a date in there if people are watching replays. And today I already know what we're going to talk about. It should be rather interesting. Forgot I have my glasses on my head. Anybody have any questions while we're waiting for people to log on? We're still early yet, and I want to make sure we have a good group on here before we get going. As a reminder, anybody that has anybody that's moving out right now, all the way to the end of this month, you cannot put rents owed during a disposition of in your disposition of security deposit. So sorry, I'm still letting people in, my bad. As it sits right now, just a reminder to everyone, you cannot, I know I'm early today, you guys, it's okay, we're just chit-chatting. But you cannot put rents that were owed during the protected pandemic period on a disposition of security deposit for the time being. Okay, so any rents that were owed from March of 2020 through June 30th of 2021, end of this month, none of those funds can go on a disposition of security deposit. And if there are no damages in the unit, you have no choice but to refund the deposit. So please keep that in mind when you're doing a disposition. That is a cause for retaliatory issues and you could get sued. And the reality is we could get sued for sneezing the way the law's currently going. It kind of is not in our favor, folks. So definitely going to do some talking today. Just going to wait for a few more people to get on. Have a lot of interesting updates for you guys, kind of, or things that are happening in our industry that we need to be aware of. Keep the lights on. Did have a client just today. Hang on and I'll get you. I'm sideways on your screen. Oh. Maybe because I need to do this. Did that work better? My bad. I'm supposed to be sideways for some things, but not all things. What do you know? Welcome to my life. I do have my microphone on. Can you guys hear me? That's a good part, right? So have a Widget's Way supporter, follower, however you want to call it, a client. I don't care. I'm just glad. One of us, you guys, one of us actually got a sheriff lockout today in LA. And sorry, I get so excited when we win one. Yeah, so congratulations for those of us that are getting possession during lockouts or through the lockout process. It doesn't always come out that way. I'm really glad to hear when we get possession of a unit that we would been trying to evict or struggling with for quite some time. That's always a plus for us, right? Yay, we got our property back. We didn't have to shoot anybody and we didn't have to buy anybody off. So I like it when things like that happen. We're starting to see everything, and I mean everything, being heavily litigated because of COVID. So believe it or not, they're even heavily litigating nuisances with dates, times, witnesses, code enforcement, all blaming it on the pandemic. I wish I had all the answers. I don't, just saying. I did find out some very interesting things today. So please, I don't really want to get into it quite yet. We're still letting people into the room. I want to make sure I have as many people here as I could tell you. And I'm happy about it. We're winning one. Okay, I know everybody's consumed or concerned with the consumer debt. With it not being landlord tenant debt anymore, it is now considered consumer debt. Consumer debt can cross state lines. Paying attention? simply said. If you sue your tenant in small claims court and you get a money judgment against them under landlord-tenant litigation, and they cross state lines and move to Arizona, you cannot cross state lines and collect that debt. You cannot garnish their wages. Your debt collection has to stay within the state under landlord-tenant law. Now that they made it consumer debt, you can cross state lines. Paying attention? So they can run, but they can't hide. Just saying, something for us to think about when we're trying to collect this money that these tenants owe us. A lot of these tenants feel that they can actually just leave the state and nothing can hurt them. They know, they're not ignorant. They may be arrogant, but they're not ignorant, you guys. So, and I'm going to repeat it just so everybody heard what I just said. Landlord-tenant debt stops at the state line. If your tenant moves to Arizona, New Mexico, Canada, another country, we stop there. We can't cross state line for landlord-tenant debt collection. Okay, everybody understand that? The way the government rewrote the rules, this isn't landlord-tenant debt for the COVID rent monies. It's consumer debt. Consumer debt can cross state lines. It's no different than them owing a major credit card company. Here's a trick though. That still means landlords have to go over state lines to collect the debt. They can't assign the debt to a collection agency or an attorney's office to help them. So keep that in mind. This is all something you're going to have to do. I will say, I will be very honest with you. Your legal counsel will hold your hand. They are going to offer services to help landlords with this debt collection. We might even teach classes. Who knows? And I don't know that much about collections. I know this much about it. Okay. I know a lot of things about it, but I don't know everything about it. So we may have to do some classes on debt collection and going after that money, especially if they cross over state lines and what those rules and regulations are. But it was just nice to know that if they move out of the state, they can run, but they can't hide. They can still claim bankruptcy, obviously, and wipe out all of the debt owed through the coronavirus time period. So just something I wanted to share with you guys, and I'm still letting people in, sorry. Thank you for joining us today. Today is June 9th, 2021. We're getting closer to June 30th. We're anticipating to see some changes by the end of the month. We have more municipalities that are extending, offering additional 60 days of protections to the tenants. I'm okay with offering additional 60 days of protection to the tenants. I'm fine with that. The fines and fees that they can get landlords on for retaliatory issues are atrocious, and they could be, they could wipe you out very quickly if you're not careful. So I don't want anybody to run to go increase rent, and I don't want anybody to run to go terminate tenancy. Let's talk about what you need to do and why you need to do it. But really watch out for the retaliatory issues. Remember, everything that's happening right now and tying up the court system is because there is no case law. Okay, 99% of the cases that are being tried right now are being settled. Okay, so if they don't contest, you're gonna just go through the system. If they start contesting and keep contesting, we're not seeing a lot of rulings made. We're seeing a lot of things being postponed because of the pandemic. As you guys know, LA County is currently not doing jury trials at all. So if the tenant asks for a trial by jury, they just give it a 30-day continuance. After that 30-day continuance, you got to show back up in court, pay the attorney again to show back up in court to get that continuance, and they're just going to continue it again. When they will bring jury trials back to LA, I couldn't tell you, but definitely something that we need to be mindful of. This is the best way I could explain it to you in my professional opinion, so bear with me, okay? And I'm going to try to simplify it as much as I can. For the last 30 years, and I mean 30. Yeah, I've been in this business that long. I could say that with confidence. So we'll go with that. I've been in this business longer than that. Now that I think about it, that's scary. I'm old. For the past 30 years, anytime we've had a lease violation, a nuisance, or a non-payment of rent, we've always said the same thing. We'll just evict them. We'll just put them in legal and evict them. I'm here to awaken you guys. We need to change the way we think. Okay. And hear me out. And I'll try to dumb this down as easy as I can because it's got a lot of moving parts and it's very convoluted. Okay. But here's the gist of it. We have lost our right to a fair and speedy trial. Whether it's fair or not, that's in the eye of the beholder. Speedy? But our legislation and our government isn't fighting for us to make us get our right back. They're fighting to extend this longer because of the majority. So if we have no case law and everything's going to get tied up in legal until you can come to a settlement amount, and let's face it, Bosta's first offer at $150,000 to pay the tenant and give them 6 more months to get them out is extortion. And when they come down and come down and come down and they're settling at about, and I'm guessing here because each case is different, between $75,000 and $50,000, that's still extortion. I don't want to play. So what I'm very carefully trying to tell you is our mindset used to be, well, we'll just put them in legal. We'll put them in eviction. Here's the reality of that. Nobody wants to have their property tied up for months on end while they're bleeding money to their legal counsel, only to find that they're going to settle anyway. Why not just offer them cash for keys now? I know it's a hard pill to swallow, especially because they owe you money, but please think about the big picture. People that are in legal and they've been battling, or there's jury trials, or they're still in legal from when the pandemic started. People that had evictions open prior to could still be in the legal process. The courts are inundated. They're coming in by the butt ton, for lack of a better way to explain it, so badly that Barstow Court, which is where all of the high desert cases are heard, Big Bear, Apple Valley, Lucerne Valley, Hesperia, Victorville, Adelanto, that's the high desert in a nutshell, okay? There's more cities here, but they're all heard in the Barstow Courthouse. Currently, Barstow Courthouse, and I don't know if everybody's familiar with the process and procedure, you give your attorney the paperwork to start an eviction, your attorney fills out the summons and complaint, and the court recognized documents, provides the supporting details, and submits it to the court. The day they submit it to the Barstow Courthouse, we have to wait. Same thing happens in LA. They electronically submit it, and then in about 10 days or so, they will give you back a case number or tell you that the case is invalid, you need to fix something. And don't panic when they do that, because usually it's crossing a T or dotting an I. It's something very simple that was an oversight, okay? I'm just saying. So, paying attention? Barstow Court, when you submit it to them and you wait that 10 days, you need to know that's a 60-day process currently. 2 months to find out if you didn't cross your T or if you can actually go serve the tenant now. That's 2 more months. You're not going to get the rent for the time being. So if you're having to wait 2 months before the tenant's even served, why not try to do a cash for keys offer and come to an agreement that makes sense? If we're going to get tied up in legal for 12 months, and this is just me talking, we're going to lose 12 months of rent, plus we're going to bleed money to our attorneys. So if we do a cash for keys agreement, it should be close to that number. We're going to lose that money anyway, so it's worth a shot. Just saying. Ding, is the light coming on? The just as system is just us, okay? LA County, 6 to 8 months for an uncontested case. 6 to 8 months. And that's if they don't fight you. They're backlogged. If it's contested, we don't even, well, we do have some that are contested that are starting to get lockouts, and it's only because they're making settlement agreements. They're settling. So settle now, offer them that money now, make that deal now. Don't go through the whole process. Don't spend that money. In the mudslinging, yes, I said mudslinging. In the mudslinging way of our legislation currently, because that's what's happening. They're either trying to poke each other in the eye or they're throwing mud back and forth to see what sticks. In the meantime, we, the people, are suffering the repercussions. It's not fair. It's not fair at all. It's starting to make me extremely irritated. Extremely. And I wish my voice was much louder, because I would scream at the top of my lungs, what are you doing to we the people? Because at this particular point, we the people don't seem to be getting a right to a fair and speedy trial, nor are we getting justice. It's getting scary out there. Tenants are getting more and more wise as to the system and how the system works. Okay. The tenant advocate groups, people ask me all the time, they're given a free attorney. You don't understand. Okay. We need to get you outside of the box, because that free attorney stuff is only this much of what's happening. You're not seeing the whole picture. Okay. Let me give you an example. BASTA, Eviction Defense Network, any of those. Sorry, I'm falling off the little stool I'm sitting on. I didn't think I should fall down today. It might not be pretty. Sorry. Squirrel. So BASTA, the Eviction Defense Network, let's talk about them. And that's just a couple of the tenant advocate groups that I can think of right off the top of my head. There are hundreds of them out there. Okay, trust and believe that. They are nonprofit. You're right. Nonprofit giving free legal to tenants, the majority. So who's paying them? Our government? Something smells bad, don't you think? How are they making money? And why are they so hated? Newsflash, folks. Newsflash. When you sign a retainer agreement as a tenant with BASTA to represent you as the tenant and be your legal counsel, you sign an agreement stating that, and you may need to pay initially $200 or $400 just to be able to utilize their services. Just saying, it depends on your income bracket. Some people have to pay $400 for the very first visit to go see BASTA. Okay. Here's what y'all don't know. You sign a contract with BASTA that they're your legal counsel. You're also agreeing to give them 33 1/3% of any monies awarded to you. They're taking 1/3 of whatever money you have to pay the tenant. Paying attention? Why do you think they're asking for $150,000 in 6 months of time on the first attempt to come to a settlement agreement? They're setting the bar. They're trying to get paid. Is this clicking, you guys? Is this making sense? Nonprofit, my ass sucks buttermilk. Sorry. Just saying, some of these things are more convoluted than we think. And if we look at the big picture and past all of this, look at tuna labels. Dolphin free says who? The same company that, the same entity that governs the fishing? I mean, it's yes. Okay, so big picture, you guys, it doesn't make sense. What's happening doesn't make sense. That's the simplest way that I could explain it. Our justice system isn't there. Fast, fair, speedy trial, as if, what can we do about that? Well, we can jump on the lawsuits with our apartment associations. They've been a big voice in all of this mess, just so you guys know. AGLA has been tremendously active with all the different variations of lawsuits and standing up for our rights and having advocates in Sacramento going to bat for us. So if you're involved in an apartment association and you pay them dues and you utilize their forms, that's great. If you're not involved in an apartment association and you're downloading your forms off the internet because you're just searching for what you think you need, stop doing that. A lot of those documents on the internet are unethical, if not illegal, okay, in their verbiage and the way that they're written. So you want to make sure that when you're building your foundation for your residential business, you're giving it a good, solid foundation. That would hence be your rental agreements, your contracts, your paperwork, just lining up your ducks to make sure all of them are in a row so that we can cover your asset to the best of our ability. Thank you for catching what I was trying to say. We need to cover your asset, okay, to the best of our ability. So with that being said, if you're pulling a document here and pulling a document here and putting it together the way you think it should be read, or in paragraphs that make sense to you, what are you leaving out that you don't understand that's written in legal terms that's going to hang you because it's not in your contract? Do I have your attention? For those of us that are pulling documents and pulling it off, oh, well, I like this paragraph in this rental agreement, and I like this one out of this one, and this one out of this one. Stop doing that. Unless you're legal counsel or you have legal counsel helping you, what you're missing in there are key components that help you. And most of the time they are written in legal terms so that you don't understand them. Let's just be honest. So if we don't understand something, what is the first thing our brain does? We turn the page. We'll go back to that later. Well, did you put it in your final document, or did you actually go back, do the research, find out what that meant in simple English? And I'll give you a great example, okay? Look at your attorney's fees language in your rental agreement. Go ahead, look at it. I could tell you probably verbatim what it says. It says, each party is responsible for their own legal fees, or it says the prevailing party will receive legal fees not to exceed a dollar amount. A lot of landlords put $5,000 there because that's how much their last eviction cost them. So when you take that rental agreement as a tenant into the tenant attorney and you say, hey, my landlord isn't providing me habitable premises and I need help, the first thing they want to see, and I worked in a law firm for 5 years, folks, is they want to see the rental agreement because they want to see what the rules are, how much money's in it for them. So when they look and see $5,000, they take the case because it says prevailing party. That means if you lose, that's how much you have to pay your tenant for their legal expenses. Everybody got that? The lower that number is, the better off you most likely are. And although I can't give you legal advice as to what dollar amount to put there, because I am a lot of things, I'm not an attorney, I can explain to you in simple what that actually means. It means that's how much they're going to have to pay you for legal fees, attorney's fees, not your court costs, your attorney's fees, not court costs, not filing fees, not lockout fees, just your attorney fees, okay? So with that being said, please look at that paragraph, see what that says in there. If it's a high dollar amount, know that if you lose, you are then entitled to pay the prevailing party. That would be the tenant. Sorry, I had a phone call come in. So you would be entitled to then pay the prevailing party, the tenant and their attorney, however much money that says there. Okay. Paying attention? So sometimes when you piece together a rental agreement, you're hurting yourself more than helping yourself just because you don't understand all the legal terms that are written in there. Okay, just trying to help you guys as much as I can. And I have a personal comment, but I'll keep it to myself because it's not pretty. Yeah, it had to do with the government changing our written rental agreement anyway, but I'll be quiet. I never thought, I'll be honest with you guys, I never thought in a million years that our government would be able to come in and trump my legal written rental agreement between me and my tenant, that they would be able to sever that and tell me when the rent was due. And that I couldn't charge late fees if I wasn't paid for 16 months. I never thought they had that kind of power. I now see clearly as to what is going on. Or I shouldn't say I see clearly because I could always learn more. But I have a better idea of the bureaucracy and bullcrap that's been going on here. Makes a little more sense to me. And I got to remember, we're the minority. That's why everything falls downward on us. They're the majority. There's more of them. We're outnumbered, folks. So when you think about it that way, it kind of puts everything into perspective as to the why this is going on and why tenants are getting all these perks and why we're outnumbered. Without us, they'd all be homeless, but they don't think about that because they're looking down a tunnel in a tube, not this way. I want to look outside the box, outside the building, outside of the stratosphere as to what we can do to fix this problem before we lose ourselves. It's not cool. You know what I mean? I don't love it. I do have a crystal ball. I really do. But it's broken. See, I put it in the shop and it just don't work. You like that, huh? You like my little crystal ball? Tell me, crystal ball, when will we get our rent monies? It doesn't know. I get it. I feel you guys. We're starting to see a lot of the governmental programs run out of money for assistance. That scares me. Will they shift money from cities that have an abundance of money over to cities that are out of money? I can't answer that. I mean, it makes sense that they should do that, but just because they should doesn't mean they will. Who knows if the city gets to keep the leftover funds? Who knows? I have no idea. But yes, it was distributed through municipalities. And I could tell you right now, HDICLA is out of, they are no longer accepting applications. That is the nicest way I could say it. Ouch. And San Diego is like, hello, where are all the people that need money? Because we haven't had that many applications come through. I wish I had the answers. Reality is I don't. And all I could tell you is hang in there. We'll see which way the cards fall. And I am riding this storm with you. We are all not on the same boat, but we're all in the same storm. Some of us are on a life raft. Some of us are in a yacht. You just never know. But we're all in the same storm and it's affecting us all differently. Even some of the tenants it's affecting differently. After 16 months of being put on lockdown and having everything that we've known throughout our whole lives of being free and being able to go to work and having to wear a mask and having to go get a vaccination. I mean, this is all new to us. And it's causing quite a bit of upset in our own mental health, our own mental status. We have tenants that aren't paying us. We have tenants that are bitching at us. We have landlords that are complaining to us because the tenant's not paying the rent. For those of us that manage investment in property, we're taking it from every angle possible. Then we have kids at home that we're trying to homeschool on top of doing our day job. I mean, I don't have to tell you guys what you're going through. You know better than I do. But this is a time that we all need to make sure that our mental clarity is square, especially with our business adventures. We don't want to act on emotion and make a mistake that's going to cost us the property. I mean, I don't know a better way to explain it. I mean, foreclosure is imminent if we have no income and no protections. So that concerns me as well. Very much so concerns me. Where do we go from here? Well, we're going to pick up the pieces and keep moving forward, because that's what us strong Americans do. Just saying. You know, we don't run off crying and screaming that, no, forget this, and throw our hands in the air. No, we jump in the fire and we figure it out. So not quite time to jump in the fire yet. We see things coming to an end. We're seeing a lot of protections come in to add an additional 60 days of protection period. You guys, we've been in this for 16 months. 60 days is not going to kill us. Okay. I hope you guys paid attention to what I was trying to explain to you about the backlog in the court. Here's something else to add to that. In the event that the real estate market and the current pattern that it's on with the bubble and it's skyrocketing were to burst, make a change, if you will, or simply just crash like it did in 2007, just saying, that's going to inundate our courts as well, because foreclosures go through the same courtroom as evictions, and then foreclosure evictions go through the same courtroom as well. Yeah. So I know that for the past at least 10 years, you guys, we've always said, oh, if they're violating, we'll just put them to legal. We'll just evict. Rethink that, please. Look at what you're signing up for. Talk to your legal counsel. Ask them, hey, what's the average amount of time to get a lockout from a case in the city that I'm in? They're going to tell you first uncontested, so it doesn't scare you. And then they're going to, and then make sure you ask, in a contested case? And what brings it to the end? Is there actually a settlement, or is it decided by the jury? I could tell you right now, it's a settlement. I could tell you. Because landlords get so far into this, and then they're like, okay, I got to stop this bleeding. I'm bleeding money. I'm not getting any income. I'm spending money every month to the legal counsel to help represent me, and I can't keep doing this. My pockets are only so big. Everybody thinks they're much bigger, but they're not. So now what do I do? Now it's, okay, I need to make a settlement agreement. I need to get my house back. This has got to stop. Well, then starts that negotiation. So if they're coming out in a court trial to go to settlement anyway and come to an agreement to vacate, why aren't we doing that prior to? Just saying. And for those of us that want to add, hold on, I lost my train of thought because I saw somebody's question. I'm sorry. Blonde. And for some reason or other, it is very hot. Has LA County extended the 60 days in the moratorium? Municipalities are issuing them. So Culver City just issued a moratorium stating that they were going to offer 60 days of additional protections to the tenants. In LA County, I can tell you right now, they gave the tenants 1 year to pay the COVID rent back. Guys paying attention? See how they keep siding with them? They're also trying to stop us from being able to do cash for keys in LA County. Why? Why would they want to stop us from getting possession of our unit faster and not inundating them with more cases? Because there's no money in it for them. I bet you 1 cent, because I'm broke because of COVID. I own investment property. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I bet you though, that if they, the court, could write the cash for keys agreement and we had to pay them a fee to have that entered, like a stipulated agreement, I bet you dollars for donuts they'd let us do it then. If we could submit a document to the court saying that we made a cash for keys agreement and pay them a fee to record that as a mutual agreement, I bet you dollars for donuts they'd let us do it because there'd be money in it for them. I know. I'm trying to get you guys to think about what's happening. We're opening. They are not going to extend us on lockdown much further. How do I know this? Disneyland opened, folks. It's good enough for Disney. Everybody else is going to follow suit. We're opening up. Things are coming back to the norm. They may ask us to wear masks for a while longer. Don't get me started on that. Don't get me started, please. I have my own opinions I'm trying to keep to myself. It will be extremely interesting to see how this goes out. I could tell you right now, in LA County, I wouldn't touch them for 60 days. Make sure you talk to your legal counsel before you want to pursue an eviction. But the reality is you're going to get logged down in tape and in a shuffle, and it's going to be worse before it gets better. Eviction isn't quick. It's not a quick process. And with the COVID pandemic, it's not speedy. And that's not fair to us. We have lost our right to a speedy trial. And for that, it's not fair. It's not fair and it's not speedy. Yes, I know it was non-payment of rent. Yes, I know they were affected by COVID. So was the entire planet. Why are we giving somebody special privileges if they just say they were affected? We were all affected. The entire planet was infected. Affected, not infected. I apologize. We've all had to wear masks. We've all had something happen to us that we've had to do because of this pandemic. Until some poor soul goes through all the way to case law, we're not going to know what the answer is. And I'll give you guys a rock solid idea. Corporate America. I don't want to name any major groups, but I know them here. And I'm talking about major property management companies. You guys know them as corporate America. And I'm talking about the big people that have 50,000 units and higher. Okay, corporate America. Were you working for a chain that may be national, it may be just in California, but big company, okay, huge. They're not in legal right now. They're not evicting on non-payment of rent. They don't want to set the standard for case law. That should tell you something, because most of them have their own in-house corporate attorneys. They don't want to be sucked into a case law case. So we'll see how that plays out as this continues to come to an end, and don't be surprised if they offer additional protections. I've already told you guys and explained you guys, look at January 1st as the safe date. And don't be surprised if things get pushed to that date, because it's just what's happened in the past, okay? So the 60 days past the moratorium, I'm not worried about that. I'm more concerned that we're gonna get another 4 months on top of that. I think they can do the 60 days twice. So that's going to add 4 months anyway. So again, this isn't a race, you guys. We're not running a race to see what we can do to figure that out. If you need help, if you're in a position where things are getting bad for you, you need to look at resources. You need to contact the lender. You need to see if you can get a deferment on your payments for the next year. You need to see what you can do to help you and not be dependent on the tenant. There's a lot of city programs. There's a lot of church programs. There's a lot of different municipalities offering programs to help. They're out there. Trust and believe that, okay? I would start searching there rather than waiting for the light at the end of the tunnel, because we don't know when that's coming. And we're starting to see them running out of funds as far as helping us as landlords. So swoop up those funds wherever you can find them. I don't want to say, hey, just ask April, because she'll shoot me right through this Zoom meeting. But there, April's like, don't do that to me, Patty. Yes, here comes the laughing out loud. April is a money chaser, just so you guys know. During this pandemic in the last 6 months, and we give you major kudos, April, she's collected over $70,000 in COVID relief, not related to the government bailout program?
I just got another $43.50 today.
Oh, look at you. So how much are we up to collecting in delinquent COVIDs? Are we up around 80 grand yet?
Yeah, I would think by end of month I'll have about 80.
Are you available for hire? Will you share your knowledge? April is my money girl. So in the beginning of this pandemic, there was a lot of things going on. And she says, what about this? And what about this? And I said, girl, I only got two hands. You focus on the money. I'll focus on everything else. And that's what she's done. She's my money girl. But anybody that has been able to collect $70,000 plus during a global pandemic by avoiding the government bailout, you know, the 80%, she didn't go that direction, folks. She didn't have to give away 2%. I applied to Housing is Key 2 months ago. Hold on, Gabby. Let me see what that says, because April will help us with this. But it's still processing. April, is the processing process still happening with the Housing is Key money through the federal program?
So if it says application processing, that's still the beginning stage. If it says application submitted, that means it was submitted for review. And then after that, it says submitted to quality control. That's when they're going to approve the payment. And then after that, a caseworker still has to approve it. And then after the caseworker reviews it, they call you or email you and tell you what you're missing. And if you're missing anything, you have 3 days to reply. If you do not reply in those 3 days, then they don't get the assistance.
Did everybody understand what April just said? Because if we needed to repeat it, I'll have her repeat it. Please repeat, April. Okay, let's go. One more time, April.
Okay, application processing, that you're at the beginning stage. You got about another 4 weeks of waiting. And that's just what I've experienced with my applications with my tenants. And that's whether the tenant applied or the landlord applied. If
Okay,
you
so
if you both applied, you're gonna wanna have your tenant call them directly and link your applications because it moves it faster.
Okay, so
Two
if our
different
tenant
applications.
if our tenant has also applied for the money, we can call them and tell them to link the two applications as one, because you'll get your money faster.
They'll process it to quality. It'll push it further to quality control, and it'll
Bingo.
push it further to a case manager. The case manager is basically your bank. That's the person that's gonna put the dollar amount. Once you see the dollar amount on your screen, how much they're gonna pay, you go to housingiskey.com and you look at the status of all your applications, and then it says there the dollar amount. Once you see that, you should be getting your money within 2 weeks.
Okay, and then please explain to me about the 3 days. Do they send us an email saying that we need additional supporting documents, or do they call us?
Yes.
I'm on a Zoom meeting with Widget, and she says that once she applies and
You're not on mute. Thank you. Go ahead, April. It happens.
So in regards to the 3 days, you receive an email and it says in capital letters, and it says action required. It says COVID-19 rental relief program, and it's going to say you need to do this. So once everything's reviewed, they actually open the application back up and have you re-sign it with that date. So you're confirming again that you want the money.
Okay.
So they'll open the application, and then if you're missing anything else like a W-9 or maybe you need to submit a lease agreement or something, it'll be included in that. And what they do is they give you a list, and once you finish that list, there's a little button that says task completed, and that goes back to the case manager, and then it gets processed for payment.
Perfect, perfect. And then have you had any that completely fell out at 3 days because nobody responded?
No.
Okay.
not
I
at
just
all.
thought
But
I'd ask.
here's the problem though. Sometimes those emails are sent on weekends. So you guys need to check your emails on weekends. And the most important thing is to check your spam. Because I
Spam.
received, yes,
Your
I
junk
received two
mail. Okay.
emails. I received 2 emails that went to my spam folder and it was on a weekend.
Okay, did everybody get that? Is everybody paying attention to what April's saying if you applied for the government funds?
Okay, and then I see a question
Okay.
about them both applying. Can the landlord call or does the tenant have to call in? So they're very strict on what information they're gonna release to you. They are not gonna release anything to you. So the best thing to do is if you're in communication with your tenant, which you should be, is just encourage them, say, can you call up, and follow up, and let them know your landlord applied as well, and that if you guys can link both applications, because it does speed up the process.
Okay, that makes sense. And that might be what part of the delay is, you guys, is they're trying to figure out, okay, I have the landlords. Now I have to go through all these and find the tenants. And
Correct.
that's probably taken a lot of time. So what you're saying to expedite the process, April, makes complete sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody have any questions for April? And you can unmute yourself and ask them if you like. She's my money girl. I'll chase the law, let her chase the money, and we'll power up together, okay? Teamwork, baby. That's how we roll around here.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look like anybody else has any questions about the money, which is a good thing because
Yes,
that
I guess I
means,
gave them all the info.
hey, you did your job, baby, and I love you for it. So thank you. How do you collect? Hold on, Gabby's got a question. How did you collect?
How do we collect? What do you mean?
When the government's paying you, how does it collect? Is it direct deposited? Are they mailing you a check? Explain.
Oh, okay. So when you filled out the application, there was a section that asked if you wanted an ACH payment or if you wanted a paper check. So if you selected paper check, it takes 7 to 10 business days for them to process. Once everything has been approved and recorded. Otherwise,
Okay.
if you did ACH, they send you an email to set up an account on bill.com and you receive your payment in 3 business days. And I've already received 3.
Okay, did that all click? Do we have any more questions about that? Because we're talking about something that matters right now, folks. We're talking about how to help you financially. And let's face it, some of us need that help right now. Are there any other programs, Gabby is asking, other than, hold on, I can answer this. So what you're asking, is there anything better or anything else available out there other than and I can't even remember what it's called, April. What was it called, what the government did? Housing is Key?
Yeah, it's housingiskey.com, but all they have it listed as is COVID-19 rent relief program. I believe it's ERAP something like that.
Okay, so if you get involved in that program, that's the program that's only going to pay landlords 80%, and then they have to forgive the 20%, okay? If you go through a municipality or someone that isn't the Housing is Key, such as, and April will give me a list if we ask her, but I'm sure Red Cross is helping. I know that local churches are helping. April, who else do we have helping? I know some municipalities are hopping in.
I can look. I haven't been on the site that much since I already applied for all my tenants, but but I can look. But I just want to let people know, like when you reach out to churches, most of the time they only help with utilities.
Okay.
Some in some cities, but you could get lucky with some churches that will help with donations for rent.
Okay, so there's a lot of places out there that are trying to help with this whole pandemic and help these landlords. We just need to know how to find them. And April has that capability. Except for HDICLA. They are out of money, folks. There's no other way to say it. If you wanted to apply for HDI-CLA or you're in that area, as simply as I could say it, you probably missed the boat. There may be other programs through churches and municipalities that may be able to help you, maybe, but at this point, if HDI-CLA ran out of money first because they're one of the most populated areas, let's just be honest. It is what it is. Right? So still seeing a little bit of confusion coming about with tenants that are vacating currently, just so everybody knows, please do not put rents owed from the COVID pandemic period on your disposition of security deposit. It is retaliatory and they can sue the pants off of you. So if a tenant vacates anytime and owes money during the COVID pandemic, you cannot put that COVID pandemic money on a disposition of security deposit. I can't implement that enough. It cannot go on there. You sue in small claims at a later date is how you get the money due in COVID. You cannot deduct it from the security deposit. As far as I know, business as normal should go back starting July 1st. And here's my thinking, folks, and please pay attention because this is where you're getting into Widget's brain, okay? If I were in a position where I wanted to evict a tenant for non-payment of rent, I would serve them. We'll get your question. Gabby, what city are you located in that you're looking for money? April's going to do you a solid and do a little bit of research for you because she's my hero. Okay, sorry, Gabby, you answer her back. Thank you. Thank you. You guys are all amazing. And I forgot what I was talking about. So somebody please tell me. It's been a long day. Montebello and Pomona. Thank you. Okay. If she comes back, Gabby, and she has all the answers for you, you better give her a lunch date or something because she's awesome when it comes to chasing the money. Okay. A tenant texted me giving me a 30-day notice to vacate. We had a tenant in waiting is very excited to move in. Then the tenant texted again saying they needed more time without a specific date. Since the notice was not in an acceptable form, I guess they have not really given me notice, but now it's in limbo with us, waiting for the tenant to leave. We're trying to be kind and not force the tenant out, but they're yanking our chain. Yes, they are yanking your chain. And here's the reality, Val. Anytime a tenant tells you they're vacating, you need that in writing, not in an email, not on a text message. You need it in pen and ink on paper because it's pen and ink on paper that flies in a courtroom. And if they have, and I'm just talking out loud here, the date, the property address, when they plan on leaving, and a signature at the bottom, and it's in pen and ink in their writing, you probably have a way to evict them for failing to vacate on their own notice. However, you're still in eviction and it's still in the protected period. So God only knows which way the wind's gonna blow and how the courts are gonna eventually decide on that. If I were you and it were me, this is what I'm saying, and please, everybody, pay attention. If the pandemic period is over on June 30th, at the end of this month, and they're still allowing protections for tenants, I'm okay with that. They're still allowing protections for the pandemic period. So what we want to do on July 1st is contact our attorney and find out if something's been issued in our area. Because I'll tell you right now, if I have a tenant that has been delinquent throughout the entire pandemic period and there is no additional protections in the city that I'm in, on July 1st, if they don't pay their rent for the month of July, I'm going to serve them a 3-day notice to pay rent or quit on July 2nd. And after those 3 days expire, I'm going to pursue an eviction. And when I get into court and they say, I was affected by COVID, I'm going to look the judge straight in the face and say, Your Honor, this notice was served after the protected period And it does not include any protected period rent. So how could that possibly fall under COVID? I know I'm only evicting for 1 month, but I'm okay with that. Just something for you guys to think about. If we go back to business as normal, you could be in eviction. When it gets contested saying that they were affected by COVID, that might not matter anymore. Again, we need to wait till the end of this month to find out exactly what's going to happen, because let's face it, here in California, they did it with us on Assembly Bill 3088. You guys, we are all excited that it was going to end on that day when it was expired. And 3 days before it was supposed to expire, we got Senate Bill 91. Left field, didn't see that coming. Well, we kind of did. But just saying, don't be surprised if we see that regarding monies that are owed during the pandemic period. I don't think we're going to have so much of it going forward, of protections for them going forward in months. Gabby, you're asking me a good question. The 15-day notice, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as I read the law, was implemented for the pandemic period. 15-day notice to pay rent or quit, a declaration stating about COVID that they would sign and return to us. Okay, that's all done and over with. So why wouldn't we go back to a 3-day pay rent or quit? They didn't change the law. They passed a temporary law during the COVID pandemic. If the pandemic's listed as over, then technically we should go back to business as normal. You're welcome. Again, need to check on protections in your area. If they've extended it by 60 days, they could have some additional time to pay that money back. It depends on how the moratorium's written, yada, yada, yada. We also haven't heard from fair housing yet. And I know I say that every time, you guys, but come on, fair housing is one of the things that we fear the most. So we might as well expect to hear from them. And since we kind of know what to expect to hear from them, it won't be so shocking. 6 months, that's my guess. Why? Because 6 months happen if they call code enforcement, if they call fair housing, or if they simply bring bed bugs into your unit. You can't terminate tenancy for 6 months or it's considered retaliatory. What is a global pandemic going to do?
Patty,
Yes.
I forgot to mention that they will need to submit the declaration from the tenant when they're applying.
Okay.
They will ask for the declaration page.
Okay,
So they
perfect.
have to collect that from the tenant, and the tenant has to apply as well. So if your tenant's not cooperating, they're not going to apply. I mean, it's still open and available to Los Angeles County, but they are required to apply as well.
Okay, so let me tell you guys a solid, okay? If the tenant is refusing to apply, and I've heard various excuses as to why. I've heard, well, we're not applying because we're not legal in this country. Bullshit. Sorry. Since when do we discriminate against people that are illegal immigrants in this country? They're a protected class. The government has to help them too. They're not going to get deported. Our borders are open. Just saying, it's bullshit. If a tenant says, oh, I would apply for the program, but I really don't want the government in my business, I don't agree with them. Just think about how they inundated your mailroom with packages during the COVID pandemic when they weren't paying you rent and shopping on Amazon, because all the packages were being delivered to the mailroom in your community, and you could see the atrocious shopping that was going on. I get it. I did some shopping I shouldn't have too. I mean, hello, we were all locked in our houses with nothing to do, right? Also, they'll say things like, oh, well, I got a new car and I really don't want the government to know that. They know that. They gave you the bailout money and the crisis money to get that car. But you're going to start hearing excuses for the tenants of why they don't want to apply. No, this is a fact. You can't force them. If they still fill out the declaration saying they've been affected by COVID, at this point, we don't have any recourse. I've talked to several attorneys on what we can do because they now refuse to pay me and refuse to participate in the government program. What can we do? You can sue them in small claims court starting August of this year. You can get a money judgment against them. They will have, in some municipalities, up to a year to pay you the money back. And then if they don't, then you can start the wage garnishment process. And just so you know, an attorney can't do this for you and you can't give it to a collection agency. You as the landlord have to do it. So we're going to see a lot of our legal counsels offering us services to help us, I'm sure. They still want to get paid and they want to help us collect those funds. So that's how that goes. So we'll see some help from them, no doubt. Anybody have anything else they want me to address before I get off of here for today? And just to remind you guys, hold on, I want to see what Val had to say. I'm sorry, I'm diverting from COVID stuff. A different tenant who is not paying the market rent by approximately $200 wants to sign a year's lease at the same rent amount. We have not answered her yet. We just need to say no until we can raise her rent. So how would you say this? What city is it in? Kern County, Taft. Okay, there's a reason I'm asking because some municipalities under the statewide rent control initiative, AB 1482, say that if a tenant refuses to sign, blah, 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 blah. I hear you, you're in Taft. A different tenant who is not paying market rent. So you want to do a rent increase of $200. Is that less than 10%? That's my first question to you, Val. If you raise their rent $200 and it's just because I don't know how much your rent is that less than 10%? And the reason 10% or less. And the reason that I'm putting in your guys' head 10% or less is please don't forget. So that's less than 10%, Val. I got you. The reason that I'm asking is because we still have another law called price gouging during state of emergency. It's California Penal Code 396. Subparagraph B clearly states that a landlord cannot increase rents during a pandemic, or I'm sorry, during a, oh my God, my brain just went. That's the third time during this webinar. I'm sorry, you guys. They cannot pay rent. Yes. What's the problem is just so you guys know, is there's so much information right in this area and it keeps changing. So I have no notes. I don't know if you guys can tell. I have no notes, okay? This is all coming from this little area right here. And sometimes it gets a little convoluted with all the nuances that are happening because people are like, oh, what city's added 60 days worth of protection? Culver City? If your rents are below market value, it's price gouging during a state of emergency. That's where I was. Sorry. California Penal Code 396 subparagraph B clearly states that a landlord cannot increase more than 10% during a state of emergency, or they could be subject to $10,000 fine and 6 months in jail. I don't know about you guys, but I don't look good in orange. That expires 30 days after the state of emergency is released. Currently, it has not been released. At this point, I think it may be released on June 30th when the moratorium ends. However, I don't know. It would be extended for another 30 days. And as long as it's under 10%, it wouldn't fall under the price gouging during a state. You don't have to worry about the jail time is what I'm trying to, you're not going to go to jail, folks. As long as you're under that 10%, that's the key there. And if you think about it, think about when we have an earthquake, okay? And everybody's in line to get bottled water and a gallon jug of water is $10. That's what they're trying to stop. Same thing, but with housing. Okay. And so keep that in mind. We don't need to, I don't look at an orange. I don't know about the rest of you, but I don't look at an orange. What if our rents are way below market value? If your rents are way below market value, then shame on you for not raising them before this happened. And that's just me telling you. It doesn't matter how much they're paying, it's price gouging, any way you look at it. So you want to be really careful with that. Just because it's so scary. I mean, I'll give you an example. Remember those fires in Northern California a few years ago where like 5,000 or more houses were lost in those fires? You guys all remember that? It was a couple years ago. One lady, God love her, took her rent of $2,000 and raised it to like $6,000 because there was nowhere, it's supply and demand. She's still in litigation for this. They're making case law out of her case. They charged her with 3 counts. So she's looking at fines up to $30,000 and 6 months times 3, 18 months in jail. Ouch. Remember, there's a lot of things that are protecting them for retaliatory issues and things of that nature. Senate Bill 91 laid out what those fines were going to be, anywhere from $500 to $2,500 per occurrence. Example, you raise rent during the pandemic. For every month that they raise the rent, you could have to pay that fine. So it could be a maximum fine of $2,500 per occurrence. If you've raised it the whole 16 months of the pandemic and they want to give you the maximum fine, they could charge you $2,500 times the 16 months that you increase the rent. Ouch. None of us need that. Okay. Error on the side of caution. It may not be worth increasing the rent if we're going to get bit so hard. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Nothing else. Be careful what you're thinking about doing, because although it made sense 2 years ago, it probably doesn't make so much sense right now. Let me see what Val had to say. Hang on. Can we all pitch in to get you a bigger crystal ball? Yes, you can. I still don't know if it's going to work, but I'm willing. I'm just wondering, how would you say we aren't sending a new lease agreement until 2022 with a new rent amount? Obviously, no, she knows she's getting a bargain and wants to lock it. At this point, we're willing. Well, I don't. Hold on, Val, you told me you were in Kern County, right? Let me go back and look, just because I want to make sure I'm not giving you bad information. If this is in Kern County, you can absolutely tell her that at this point, you're leaving her on a month-to-month. That you're not willing to sign a new contract until this pandemic period is over. That's how you do that. At this point, we'll leave you on a month-to-month contract. You don't have to tell her, and then you can go back later and say, okay, now we're ready for a lease renewal, or you could just serve her a rent increase when the time allows. So you can handle that one or two ways. Serve her a rent increase once the time allows and she's on a month-to-month. I'm going to say this to you, so please pay attention, okay? Please pay attention. A term tenancy benefits the tenant, not the landlord. When you get into a one-year term, you are agreeing that you will provide them with habitable premises for 1 year. In the event you can't, you must provide them with alternative housing. If you're on a month-to-month, you have the ability to terminate the contract. If you're in a year term, you don't. If you're in a year term, you're locked in as to what changes to the rules you can make, because you can only change rules that are mandated by law, like bedbug addendums. Okay, so when you put somebody in a one-year term, sometimes you're only standing on your own feet. Does that ensure that they're going to be there for a year? No. They can move out at any time and pay a lease break fee or monetary damages until you re-rent it. It's a false sense of security for landlords. It's a great sense of security for tenants because it means you can't touch them for a whole year. Can't change the rules, can't raise the rent, can't do anything. Are you guys seeing how this works? And if you want to know what I'm talking about, call your attorney and ask them, is it better to put a tenant on a month to start or a 1-year contract? Let them tell you, because they'll explain it to you too. On a month to month, once that first 30 days is over, you can change rules. On a year term, you got to wait a year if you put in the wrong late fee. Make sense? Trying to get your attention and get you to think outside of the box in the building. I took away a tenant from a lazy property. I took away a tenant from my lazy property manager. How long do I have to provide a new rental agreement to this tenant? Are they currently under a written rental agreement that is expired or is about to expire? I think I know the answer. It's expired. If you read the contract, it says that this will continue if the tenancy continues, or it has some legal verbiage in there that basically says, and follow me here, those are the written rules over which everybody has to follow. And you're now on a holdover tenancy. That's what that's called. Okay. So it automatically goes to a month to month. And here's how I can, if it's not in there, how I can explain it from a legal perspective. Okay. And remember, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not giving you legal advice, but for the majority, if the tenant holds over and goes past the end of that lease term and you don't terminate the tenancy and they keep paying rent, these rules still apply, even if it's 5 years down the road. These are the written terms. If you never renew them, it just stays on a month to month going forward, which leaves the ability open for you to change the rules or you to change fees based on whatever your circumstances are with the statewide rent control accordingly. But it gives you more power putting them on less of a term. I get why we were locking them in at a term years ago, and this is coming forward. People are making changes. We're now doing 3-month contracts instead of a 1 year out the gate. Why, people ask? Because under Senate Bill 1482, if the tenants live there for 12 months or longer, you owe relocation fees. If the tenant's a jerk and you're unhappy at month 2, you can serve a 30-day notice you want to terminate tenancy with no cause. And you can terminate that tenancy in most areas, depending on what your rent control or municipality says. And then you're done with them, they got to go. You don't pay any relocation fees. Okay, hold on. Gabby asked me another question. Are you allowed to raise rent in any city in LA County starting in July? I wouldn't, not yet. I would not raise rents yet. That's just me talking to you. I thought a rent increase notice was 60 days for the tenant. CAA firm says 90-day notice. Okay, let me explain that to you, Geraldo, just so we're on the same page, okay? They changed the law recently. Any rent increase that's 10% or less is on a 30-day notice. Any rent increase that is 11% to 14% is on a 60-day notice. Okay? You would know is on a 90-day notice. I misspoke. They took away our 60 days. So we have a 30-day, a 90-day, and a 120-day. And here's how they go. So write it down: 30, 90, 120. 30 days is 10% or less of a rent increase. 11% to 14% is a 90-day notice to increase rent. And anything more than 15% is a 120-day notice. And let me go back and read, because I know that's going to bring a lot of questions. I just did this recently. The tenant paid me the June rent. We verbally agreed on this. As the tenant was also not happy with the manager, and we manage most of our rentals anyway. Just wondering if there was a time period for me to provide her with my rental agreement. I thought a rent increase notice was 60 days for the tenant. You're still at 30 days. We lost a 60-day notice. It's 30 days, 90 days, 120 days. We lost our 60-day notices January 1st, when legislation changed, not of 2021, but of 2020. And then I thought I saw another question. Where did it go? I lost my chat. There it is. Geraldo, if you're susceptible to AB 1482, yes, you're correct. It's only 5% plus the CPI. Not everybody is affected by the statewide rent control laws. Single family owners, depending on how they hold title, are not susceptible to the statewide rent control. Therefore, they can increase more than 10% if they want to, but they got to use the proper documentation. So it just depends, okay? Depends, it depends, it depends. You're either have statewide rent control or you're exempt from statewide rent control. If you're exempt, you can increase rents accordingly, following whatever the restrictions in the municipalities are. But I wouldn't be in a hurry to raise the rent. I just wouldn't. I just keep going back to what is fair housing going to say? And I think it's going to have to do with increasing rent and terminating tenancy. And that's just my crystal ball telling me that makes the most sense, but it doesn't work. It's broken. It's in two pieces. It's been in the shop, but nobody can fix it. Hey, you guys, come on. I'm trying. All right. Does anybody have, oh, you're not getting an answer on, hold on, because I want to make sure I answer you. Not getting an answer on this. Do I need to provide a tenant with my rental agreement? As I have not. She only has an old agreement from the old manager. It doesn't matter who, it's still a contractual agreement. So just because you took over management or as a landlord buys a new house, they don't have to enter into a new contract. That new contract, that old contract still applies because the tenancy was not terminated. Now, did I make that clear for you? If I didn't, let me know. So they can stay on the contract with the old owner, with an old manager. It doesn't matter as long as they keep paying you, as long as you're continuing on with that tenancy, that still is your written rental agreement. So a change in management or a change in ownership doesn't change that necessarily. If I rent to a tenant under LARSO month to month and the emergency cycle gets called off, can I raise more than 10% if it's under 12 months that we started? No, not under LARSO. LARSO right now is trying to give us a percentage of the increase amount. Don't even get me going down that road. So under LARSO, you're under rent control. That means you can only raise the CPI annually, once annually under LARSO. So you can't do 10%. You can't do the emergency thing. You are governed by your municipality. Sorry. I need to raise the rent. My mother never raised the rent for 10 years. I raised it late in 2019, but then COVID happened. If they're willing to sign a new rental agreement and it happens to have an increase listed after the protected period of the pandemic, example, starting July 1st, then you didn't increase rent during the pandemic protected period. I know it's all technical, it's all convoluted, but instead of running to go raise the rent, we need to tiptoe so we don't get the pantsuit off of us, okay? But if you're going to do a lease renewal with a rent increase, you may want to have it take effect July 1st. But again, we need to check and make sure that your municipality didn't offer an extension, yada, yada, yada. Got me? But technically, yes, I have seen quite a few people outside of LA County, and I'm using that as an example, doing rent increases that take effect or new lease agreements that take effect on July 1st, and they're at a higher rate. Paying attention? Does that make sense? Anybody have anything else? If not, I'm going to say let's call this a day. And yes, I am in California. I plan on being here for a while. And we'll go from there. Yay. Anybody have anything else? Nothing? Okie dokie. Okie dokie, okie dokie. Watch for Widget's forecast. It's a new feature that we have on there on the website. Also, it looks like I'm going to be teaming up and doing a lot of stuff with Agla here in the very near future. Just letting you know that. Looks like we'll have a few new additions to Widget's Way because of that as well. And just trying to give you guys the most information that we possibly can. And as you see, we as landlords tend to work together as a team, and I like that. I'd rather have you ask me 100 questions than make one mistake. So I'm here for you for that. If you guys need anything, you know how to hunt me down. And remember, if it doesn't sound like it's going to screw over the landlord and benefit the tenant, it's probably not the law. Just saying. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, especially right now with the pandemic. And for those of us, let me just add this. For those of us that had tenants bring in additional occupants in LA County during the pandemic protected period, and there was nothing we could do about it because of COVID. If the pandemic period ends at the end of this month, those tenants need to go or they can be evicted for unauthorized occupants after the protected period is over. Wink, wink. Everybody got that? Pay attention. But is it worth the logjam? Well, thank you for reminding us that our first reaction is always to go to evict, but look at what you're signing up for. And it is a logjam. And and this is just me talking, you guys, again, my crystal ball's broken. But if this real estate market continues to do what it's doing, we may see a repeat of 2007. That's all I'm saying. All the signs and symptoms are there. Okay. If we all went back to 2006, we would say, minus the COVID thing, we would say, oh, prices skyrocketed. Federal mortgage rates were at their lowest. Supply and demand was at the highest. People are giving more than asking price. People are paying a cash bonus at the close of escrow for a vacant unit. We would say, doesn't this sound familiar? Are we expecting a change? Absolutely. It can't continue to go the way that it's going. It can't. Eventually a change will happen. What that will be, I don't know. My crystal ball's broken. But if it crashes like it consistently does over time, every 10 to 15 years or 10 to 14 years, whatever that number is, I think it's 10 to 12 years. We're there, folks. We're past the due date. It's time. Statistically, based on our history, it is time. Whether that'll happen or not, I don't know. Again, my crystal ball is broken, but if it does, it's going to inundate our court system even worse than it already is. So keep that in mind. And LA County is trying to stop us from being able to do cash for keys. Somewhere along the lines of bureaucracy and bullcrap, we lost touch with we the people. And I get that we're the minority and they're the majority, but they'd be homeless without us. So they better stop kicking dirt in our face. Right? It's the way I look at it. I'm not saying we're better than they are, but we're providing them a service. If you keep biting us every time we put our hand out, we're going to stop putting our hand out because we don't want to get bit. Where are all these people going to go? We got problems, folks. And somewhere along the lines, we the people need to be heard. All right, I will let you guys go because I don't want to tie you up. Have a wonderful week. You will get a widgets forecast from me on Friday. That's something new that we have on our website, so please check it out. I did my very first one last Friday. Thank you, you guys. And if you need me for anything, you know how to find me. And for those of us that are anticipating lockouts this week, all of us are cheering you on. We're holding your hands. We're there, you guys. Come on. We got this, okay? We've made it this far and we didn't think we'd get past the first 30 days when all this weird stuff started happening. So I commend you for hanging in there. I thank you for following me because I couldn't do this without all of you. And I appreciate that more than you know. And keep your eyes peeled. It looks like we're going to be offering some intensive training videos in the very near future, where we're going to teach you how to be a leasing agent. And we're going to talk to you about your first day on the job as a new agent. And we're going to have all kinds of how to do a disposition of security deposit in detail and talk about those things. So we're going to do detailed classes coming up soon, very, very soon. So keep your eyes open. It should be very interesting. All right, you guys have a great weekend. I will definitely see you next week. And thank you so much for joining. Bye, everybody.